Welcome back, everyone. After a short tea break, we can now again start with a session with theme Economic Valuation of Forest. And it is my pleasure to introduce the session moderator, Dr. Tony Simons. Dr. Tony Simons, Director General, ICRAF, International Council for Research in Agroforestry. Dr. Simons has more than 27 years of experience on issues at the tropical agriculture forestry interface in more than 40 developing countries. He has published over 100 research papers and has sat on several journals' editorial boards. His interests span the 7 major research themes of ICRAF. He is passionate about the transformative and profitable change that the private sector can bring to the development. May I request you, sir, to be the moderator of the session, and I would also like to just call upon the name of all the presenters. We have with us Dr. Sanjay Mohan, Dr. Baitullah Mohammadi, Dr. Kamal Melwani, Dr. Sejoti Sarkardi, and Dr. Lalit Kumar Sharma. Rapporteurs for this session are Dr. S.K. Sharma and Dr. Mridula Negi. Sir, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ismita, and good afternoon to everyone. And congratulations, you are in the right place. You've chosen the best session in this opening first day, so well done to everyone. Director Generals, it is their job, well, many people accuse them of exaggerating, okay, but we do have a fantastic set of 5 presenters this afternoon who are going to take us through various aspects of the economic valuation of forests. And although we're accused of exaggeration occasionally, I leave that up to the 2,000 people in this room and the 150,000 people viewing this online. But allow us to start with our first presentation by Sanjay Mohan on ecotourism for sustainable livelihood, the Karnataka model. Sanjay, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank everyone here for this wonderful opportunity here. You see, I am Sanjay Mohan. I belong to Indian Forest Service of 1985 batch. And I'm very much fortunate to be here because I have lived in this campus all through my life. My father, Dr. S.S. Rajput, was a scientist here. And since I went away from this place, so this is the first time I am standing on this dais and addressing you all. So I'm really very, very pleased. So I come from this state called as Karnataka, which is a part of India. It is in the south of this country. And my topic is ecotourism for sustainable livelihood, the Karnataka model. Happen to see internet, you will find so many ways it has been told, it has been defined and all. But the best way it can be told is that ecotourism is responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment, sustains the well-being of local people, and involves interpretation and education. And I feel that Karnataka is doing exactly the same. And you will be very happy to know that Karnataka was the first state to start so-called state-sponsored this work, ecotourism. Now, ecotourism, even the earlier speakers have also told that ecotourism has got a great sort of a potential for jobs. And I feel that as the time goes on, this potential has to only increase. So that is why ecotourism is the fastest growing industry in the world. And it has a great employment potential. Sustainable management of the forest. And it is a way in which the urban people can be sort of told about the forest, educate about this forest and all. Just like people who live in and around the forest in Karnataka and in whole of the country are being involved in the joint forest planning and management. Similarly, the person who lives in the town and cities, he can sort of involve with the forest. And of course, it empowers the local community. How that I will just let you know. See, tourism as a sector has got a great potential for jobs. And in this potential of tourism, I think ecotourism has got about, I can say about 1/5 of the jobs are in this sector alone. And tourism at large, I think this is the only sector, this is the only part, ecotourism, which has got still great scope to become more. It may be 1/5 now, but tomorrow it may become 1/4. So I have just shown here that around the world how this total value of this tourism and all. Now coming to my state, Karnataka. Karnataka government in the way back in 1980, we started this state-sponsored, and we had a company called as JLR, Jungle Lodges and Resorts Limited and all, which was formed in 1980. Initially, the company was not doing quite well, but during the 90s and all, the company picked up. And today, what started with one sort of a camp, today we are having about 17 to 18 camps in the whole of the state. And in Karnataka, we have always taken full care that whatever you do in this field, ecotourism, you should make sure that you should not harm the wildlife, you should not harm the nature and all. So in Karnataka, it has always been a low impact, and we have always taken full care of the capacity of that place. And if you go to any of our camps, we have always gone for small huts. It can be it could be a tent, it could be a log hut and all. We have never gone for huge structures and all. So we have always been what you call as environment friendly. And the basic objective of this company was to educate people. Just the main objective is to educate so that more and more people can know about why this forest has to be conserved and all. And in each of our resort, see, we are trying to have as eco-friendly as possible. We don't make any waste. Whatever waste is there, it is sort of recycled and segregated. We don't give ACs. You will be shocked to know that in the best resorts which we have, we don't have AC at all. Because we feel that if you are based in a very good environment and all, there's a forest all around, and you don't need AC. And I have felt that only a fan can do it. And the most striking part is that manpower. We all take our employment from the local place only. In any of our camp, if you go around all the small hamlets and villages, all the people, almost 100% are given the employment from that place only. And Jungle Lodges and Resort also helps the Karnataka Forestry Department also in a very big way. Whenever there is a big fire and all, the Jungle Lodges staff goes and helps them. So I have already told about this company, Jungle Lodges and Resorts and all. I will not talk much about it. I think there's not. So in all the state, in my state, Karnataka, almost there are about 17 to 18 resorts all across. Now coming to the livelihood support, which is the main theme here. We are directly employing about 600 to 700 people in our resorts and all. And I think the equal number of people are also linked from the so-called spin-off. And a lot of locally made things, locally made sort of handicrafts are being sold in the resort. Jungle Lodges and Camp also sponsors scholarship. They will hold health camps and all. Now, Jungle Lodges was one story. In the last 8 to 10 years, even the Karnataka Forest Department is also having a concept called as Jungle Camps and Trails, where we are building a small resort in the forest area. And the jungle resorts was a bit high-end because a person cannot afford it. So this jungle camps and trail, which is being done by the Karnataka Forest Department, this is quite affordable. And these camps employ local guys. We have got guides. We have got people who interpret the nature for you. And the best part is that we are trying to hand over these camps, these small camps, to the local village forest committees. When I say village forest committee means these are the people we have formed village forest committee in the locally, and these guys have been given the job to entrust to run these camps and all. And whatever profit we get is shared. So this not only gives you employment, those committees also become rich in this way process. The government of Karnataka has another very special program. It's called as Chinnara Vana Darshana. It's a government scheme. government-funded scheme where the school kids are taken to the forest camps. They are made to halt for about 2-3 days, and they are told about the forest. So at a very young age, the school kids will learn about forest and its role, importance, and all. And about 4 years back, we have also started a board called as Karnataka Ecotourism Board, and we are trying to develop certain other camps, certain other routes, and all. So. And Jungle and this Karnataka Ecotourism Board has also conducted a lot of small courses for eco guides and naturalists and all. And what is happening in Karnataka, a lot of private sort of camps have come up, resorts have come up, and there is a huge demand for these eco guides and these guys, naturalists and all. I will give you one small case study of Honavar division. Honavar division is a very small division in the whole of state. Honavar division itself, okay. Honavar itself, the division is having about 8 such spots, and in the last 4 or 5 years, we have earned about 90 lakh rupees. One more new concept has come up, is called as urban tree park concept. This is a very latest concept where urban forest is developed very, very close to a town and city. So this not only reduces the pressure on the PAs and the forest and all, people get a forest right next door. And it is a very good lung space. They also employ guys. They also employ people as a watchman, as a security and all. Then, of course, Karnataka Ecotourism Board, I had just now told about that. Karnataka Ecotourism Board was sort of developed to further explore the possibility of having more jobs in this sector and all. So we are encouraging the local community for ecotourism. We are we are having a program where we have these guides to be trained and all. And then a lot of trekking routes are being also made, developed and all. Then even the private sector and homestays are also having a lot of sort of scope in my state, Karnataka and all. Homestay, are in places like very good places, hilly state like Chikmagalur and Coorg and all. So plenty of homestay people are making their coffee estates into homestays. And homestays implies people, and the people who go there for a day package, they have to go to forest where some ecotourism is there. So basically, ecotourism is helping these homestays. A lot of jobs and supplementing income is happening and all. Now, what are the hurdles in promoting ecotourism? Ecotourism is a very good thing. See, in India, the law is such a strong law that even if you enter the forest, if you enter a reserve forest, that is also a sin. So I think we have to look into in another way. Ecotourism, by and large, I can say, is still considered as a non-forestry activity. I think something has to be done. Then, I've just taken. Then our national forestry policy of 1980s also is not at all talking about this function. So what I feel that the road ahead, this is the last slide, that we need to have a paradigm shift. We have to think that ecotourism is an activity which helps forest education and conservation. There is a huge scope of jobs in this sector and all. And I feel that KFD and Ecotourism Board has to come out with more spots, more such ecotourism places, so that more jobs can be created and all. Homestay has to be they have to be a lot of given encouragement and all. Ecotourism policy is not there for the state yet. I think that is required. And last but not the least, national forest policy of India has to come up. Though I think some authors have just not told that it is under being made and all. But it is high time that it should come up, and it should focus on this particular aspect, ecotourism. So this is just a view of some of the camps which we have. This is the first camp which we had, Kabani River Lodge, Dware, Riverton, Bhadra, Devbag. And these are some of the activities which we do: wild safari, bird watching, elephant attraction, coracle ride, nation patient. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, Sanjay. Our second speaker is Baitullah Mahmoodi from Iran, and he's going to share with us some thoughts this afternoon around the evaluation of firewood consumption by local communities in central Zagros forests of Iran. Baitullah, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. With panel members' permission, I start my lecture. This presentation is about firewood demand or consumption on forest resources in Iran. With this title, you can see. The first one, I will try to introduce our Iranian forest, 3 regions that Iranian forests are located there, including Ukrainian forest, Irano-Turanian forest, Sahara-Sandian forest. Hyrcanian forests divided two subregions, Caspian and Arasbaran. Quercus castanifolia and Fagus orientalis are the most important species there. In Sahara Sandy, we have Khaliji and Omani subregions, Acacia nilotica, Prosopis cinerea, Abyssinia marina are the dominant species there. And Zakros subregions with Quercus branti, Amygdalis orientalis, and Pistacea atlantica are located in Irano-Turanian region. In this map, you can see a location of forests of Iran. This study was done in Zakros forest, the black one. The area of Zakros forest is about 5 million hectares that located the west of Iran and separated 3 parts, north, south, and central. More than 85% of Zakros forest typology is the pure of Quercus persica types. Ecological conditions as soil, climate, drought, structure, and generation forests have very challenge and problems because deforestation and livelihood dependence are very much. However, Zakros forests provide 40% of water resources in Iran. Livelihood dependence on Zakros forest can be categorized to several cases, including agriculture, you can see, livestock grazing, demand of wood, housing and barn building, fencing around farms and yards, firewood for heating, water, firewood for baking bread, firewood for cooking and heating the milk and buttermilk, firewood for heater, firewood for charcoal. In this project, firstly, we were selected as a watershed and traditional customary regions in central Zakros forest. This customary region divided to 7 traditional sub-regions in 12 rural forests according to this map. We used Landsat satellites on 2014 to classification of forest density. You can see 4 classes here, including land forest, low density, mid density, and high density. For analysis of firewood demand, 95 rural households were tested by a questionnaire technique throughout interview in 12 rural forests. Huber volume formula was used to estimate the volume as wood consumption for each household. And for estimating of cubic trees field distribution, we used regular random sampling of which 125 sample and Kriging method by GIS. In this table, you can see the amount of firewood consumption for each household. According to this table, the average of firewood consumption is about 5.6 cubic meters. In this graph, percent of firewood consumption for each traditional customary region. And a percent of firewood consumption, and in this table shows estimating of cubic trees fields, structure indicator as the density, stump diameter, height, diameter, breadth, and volume. This map shows distribution of firewood demand density less than 150 trees cubic up to more than 600. Distribution of volume cubic street field in this map less than 1.2 up to more than 4.8. In this graph, you can see a correlation between household income and firewood demand. And also correlation between rural development index and firewood consumption. In this model, you can see interaction of household income and rural development index has 4 positions. The first one, stability of forest structure. After that, dependence to increase income. 3, livelihood dependence. And last one, social instability. You can see position of 7 traditional customary regions in this model. These are in livelihoods depends to increase income position. And the end for management, this traditional customary, the best scenario is transition from 2 and 3 position to position of stability of structure. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Batul, and thank you for keeping time. You've earned some extra time. And Kamal said she wanted a couple of extra seconds, so maybe you can buy them from him or trade them. So our third presentation from Kamal Melvani is around farmers valuing forest gardens in multiple ways.
Ayubovan, I am from Sri Lanka, and I would like to share with you a product of several years of being in the field, rehabilitating home gardens to forest gardens. And after about 20 years, I found that it wasn't my value that counted. It wasn't my landscape design that counted. What counted is what farmers valued. And it is only if the farmers valued the forest garden would they maintain it and retain it. So, it's not coming here, okay. Forest gardens are found in several tropical countries. They have multiple strata, high species diversity, are similar in structure and ecological function to native forests. They are the same as home gardens or agroforests. They provide income, food, medicine, fuelwood, timber, cultural and aesthetic needs. Forest gardens in Sri Lanka, they are an ancient land use. When I say ancient, maybe 5,000 years or more. They occupy more than 15% of the land area and are increasing in number. They complement other land users in farming enterprises. So in the picture, you can see forest gardens, paddy fields, and in the lower areas, farmers grow vegetables. So the approach that I took here was not to look at forest gardens as themselves, but look at forest gardens in the context of the farming enterprise. I looked at it in the short term and in the long term. And in the short term, I looked at on-farm component and off-farm component because I wanted to see how valuable forest gardens were both in the on-farm situation and in the off-farm situation. And so the off-farm, I will talk about it later, is activities that farmers do out of the farm holding. Now, a farming enterprise, again, has an off-farm component. It can be employment, it can be the collection of natural forest products, can be grants, welfare. And in the enterprise, the on-farm component is the forest garden, can be the tea plantation or a coconut plantation or a rubber plantation, can be livestock, can be China or Sweden agriculture, can be cash crops, as in Dioscorea alata, purple yam or cinnamon, and can be paddy fields. So the research question here is, can forest gardens reduce the economic vulnerability? if you look at where I did the study, Sri Lanka has 3 main agroecological zones. I looked at the intermediate agroecological zone that bifurcates the country. It has a mean annual rainfall of 1,750. We have a bimodal El Nino year for me. The Yellow season rainfall was greatly reduced. I had a 10-month drought, and there was excessive rainfall, 3 months rainfall in the latter part of the year. So it is in this context that this valuation occurs, so we can test climate or rainfall variability and farming enterprises. The other major problem we have is we have so little forest cover. Now forest gardens are excellent habitat for biodiversity, so we have immense damage from monkeys, giant squirrels, wild boar, porcupines, elephants, and the others. The short-term results, I use a PCO. Very clearly, you can see that there is a difference between the green blobs and the other yellow and red and crossers, which are the other land users of paddy, cash, chaina, and plantations, for the response variables: area, profit, number of plants, number of crops, profitability, crop diversity, plant diversity, and financial efficiency. So in the multivariate analysis, in every respect, forest gardens were different. If I looked at the easiest way for me to show you the results is in a series of box and whisker plots, where the central line, the median, represents 50% of the data. Area was less. Sweden agriculture had a greater area, but of course Sweden agriculture, the number of plots was less. In the number of crops, forest gardens had a higher number of crops than all other land users. For crop diversity, forest gardens had a higher crop diversity. The green represents forest gardens. All the other land users are in different colors. For profitability, that is profit per meter squared, forest gardens were more profitable than all other land users in the land holding, and forest gardens were financially more efficient. Financial efficiency is the very opposite of profitability. It means, can costs be covered by income? So the lower the figure, the better it is. So you can see forest gardens, the sliver of a line. What does this mean? Income here in this study is not just monetary income. It's the value of the food the farmer consumes, the family consumes. So if you look at this chart right on top there, for household consumption as a proportion of total household income analysis, a business accounting analysis, a snapshot of the accounts for one farming enterprise. So if you look at, in normal accounting, family labor and how much food they eat in agricultural accounting is never considered. But in this study, I use both the cost, the value of family labor, and the value of how much food people were eating. And in terms of self-sufficiency of food, forest gardens were providing up to 29% of all the food that farmers consumed, that households consumed. Now, in the scale of the entire on-farm component, forest gardens provided 56% of household income. Paddy, that is a staple food in Sri Lanka, provided 16%. But if you look at expense, forest gardens were expensive because of the cost of family labor. But so was paddy. Now, paddy is no longer a traditional staple agricultural regime. It's the use of chemicals and it's the use of mechanization to grow rice. If I looked at profitability, forest gardens were 41% of the profitability of the on-farm component came from forest gardens. This is the first time ever a study of this nature has been done. So please understand it. This has taken me 5 years to do, and the only thing that I didn't get bitten by was a viper, but everything else. Financially efficient, forest gardens were the most financial efficient land use in the entire farming enterprise. Now the off-farm component, which is the other side of the farming enterprise, employment. Aside from what families were getting from their land, employment was giving them that extra money. In the scale of the entire enterprise, at That is the farming on-farm and the off-farm component. Forest gardens provided 31% of the short-term income in farming enterprises. Off-farm contributed much more. In terms of expense, household expenses were far greater than what the off-farm by itself or the on-farm by itself could cover. I'm going to go fast. I'm touching on the long-term results. The long-term results looked at the potential timber and fuel wood, the value of this in farming enterprises. There I took 45 enterprises, and there again, very clearly, forest gardens had a higher value and a higher number of timber and fuel wood crops than all other land users. In terms of profit, in terms of the number of crops, forest gardens had the highest number of long-term crops and the highest value of long-term crops. So think about it. Forest gardens, the net realizable, because it hasn't been harvested as yet, net realizable value of timber and firewood were almost 88% of all the biological assets, that is, all the trees in the enterprise were from forest gardens. Not have time to do all this, but higher crop diversity and land use diversity, reduced risk, greater household consumption, and labor inputs were like money saved. Household food self-sufficiency was there despite challenges. Profit in extreme climatic conditions, although seasonal crops failed. Tree crops were more drought tolerant. Higher profitability was related to natural resource endowment. Paddy and cash crops, although financially less efficient, were important because they generated immediate cash and had staple food. Financial efficiency related to low cost of production and use of household labor. Off-farm income was mandatory to bridge the deficit in household budgets. Children's education was the highest household expense. Crop diversification was the main coping strategy for rainfall variability. Tree or perennial crops were cultivated to avoid losses through animal damage. Valuable timber trees were cultivated during the farmer's youth and retained for use in old age. Forest gardens were repositories for biological assets, which are long-term investments easily convertible to cash and contingencies. Yes, forest gardens reduce the economic vulnerability of farming enterprises, both in the short and long terms. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kamal, for that fascinating presentation on forest gardens of Sri Lanka. Our fourth speaker this afternoon is Sujuti Sakar, and she's going to share with us some details on the study on the collection and utilization of minus forest products by mountain women. Sujuti, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Myself, Sujuti Sakar De. I am working for the last 12 years on forestry and forestry-based livelihood. I am the Chief Coordinator of Society for Natural Resource Management and Community Development, which I have co-founded. The present study has been conducted under fellowship of Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. The present study is on the collection and utilization of minor forest producers by mountain women. Now, as we all know, the mountain women of the forest fringe villages, they are the main collectors of the minor forest producers. They collect it for their daily household needs, especially the fuelwood and the fodder. They also collect some edible leaves, vegetables, fruits, flowers, bamboo, etc. for household purpose. Now, these minor forest producers, they actually offer great economic promise for this poor mountain woman. The objectives of my study was to assess the current status of collection of the mountain forest producers by mountain women of Dhanolti area in Uttarakhand. The study area is in Dhanolti, which is located in the Tehri Garhwal district. This is about 65 kilometers from here in Dehradun. The area is situated at an altitude of 2286 meter, and the study has been conducted in the 4 mountain villages of Batwaldhar, Lambidhar, Chandukhel, and Goth. The forest, the surrounding forest is of oak, deodar forest, and rhododendron is another major species found here. Now, the methodology that I have used, there are very few secondary data. Mostly I have relied on the primary data, and they have been collected through focus group discussions with the women villagers, with the participatory rural appraisal conducted with them. Then household questionnaire survey was conducted with 107 women members of these 4 villages. And then I conducted vegetation analysis study to know the composition and density of the plant species so that I could shortlist the minor forest producers which could be collected for economic viability. Firstly, coming to the socio-economic condition, these women, they are mostly illiterate. The primary occupation is, of course, agriculture supported by animal husbandry and ecotourism, because Uttarakhand Forest Department has started good program of ecotourism in the surrounding areas of Dhanolti and Mussoorie. Now, this women, they are solely responsible for their household activities. They are also, in addition to that, they are also doing the agricultural activities, and also they are spending about 2 to 4 hours daily for collection and transportation of forest producers. Because the male members are often migrated to the cities in search of livelihood. And in addition to this, these women members have also the responsibility of the adult members and the children of their livelihoods. Now, it is interesting to know that 57.94% respondents have the LPG connection, but they still rely on fuel wood, as LPG cylinders are very hard to get, and it's also difficult to carry the cylinders from the roadside to their house on the hillside. Now, the study findings, the collection of the forest producers, of course, the highest demand is of the fuel wood and the fodder grass. 100% women, they collect fuel wood, and 96% women, they collect fodder grass. 37.38% women, they collect seasonal leaves and vegetables. I have given the common name and also the scientific name for reference. The leaves and vegetables collected here are the Lengra, Hisar, Bothua, and the Kandali, which is also called Bichu Ghas here in Uttarakhand. Then 75.7% women, they collect fruits and flowers. The species collected are the kafal, which is a very famous fruit around here, and then also rhododendron flowers for household purpose. Only 0.93% women, they have reported to be collecting the medicinal plants. And this is because the knowledge of medicinal plants is decreasing very fast among the mountain communities, and they are relying more and more on the formal medicines. And also the marketing opportunity for the collected products is very less. Then 71.03% women, they collect wooden poles from the small wooden poles from the forest for their repairing of household and agricultural equipments. Frequency, 68% women, they collect fuel wood once in 2 days, while the rest of them collect it daily. And 93.45% collect fodder grass daily. 27% women, they collect leaves and vegetables, while 71.96% women collect fruits and flowers once in a year. Now, if I go to the study findings, 70.09% women, they collect 400 to 600 kgs of fuel wood in a year, while 17.75% women, they collect more than 600 kg of fuel wood in a year. The quantity of fodder grass collected from forest, in a year, it ranges from 200 to 1000 kg. Quantity of leaves and vegetables collected, it ranges from 3 to 20 kg per year per woman collector. Quantity of fruits and flowers collected from forest varies widely from 3 to 100 kg per year. Now, 36 they have reported to be collecting 20 to 50 kg of fruits and flowers, whereas 25.23% of respondents collect about 50 to 80 kg of fruits and flowers. Quantity of branches collected is quite high. It's about 10 to 120 kg per year per woman collector. 35.51% of women, they collect more than 80 kg of branches in a year. Now, if I quantify these values and get the average quantity of NTIPs collected, of course, fuelwood has a highest demand with 521.49 kg per year per woman collector. Photographs collected is 396.6 kg. Average quantity of leaves and vegetables collected is 12 kg, and fruits and flowers is 36.67 kg. These are presently, still now it was used entirely for household purpose. Now, the vegetation analysis study we have done in the 4 quadrants in the forest from which this woman collect minor forest producers mainly. And we have seen that the density and the frequency of rhododendron is quite high. Now, my vegetation analysis study, it reveals that the medicinal herbs are quite good in number, and the major herbs that can be found here are the chirata, bajradanti, and the banapsa. But though I have trained the women on medicinal plants collection, but they have shown very less interest. Constraints faced by women collectors, they are mainly on the lack of proper knowledge, and also the modern generation, they feel the walking and climbing is quite tedious for them. The storage and the processing, the transportation of forest producers are mainly done by the head load. Now, the storage and processing, very few women do more than the primary sorting. They do only the primary sorting and some sun drying activities, and they are stored mainly in the ceilings near the kitchens or in the cattle sheds. Now, SNRM City, they have our organization, we have conducted more than 20 awareness generation workshops and trainings for these women to train them on value addition on minor forest producers for alternative income generation. 4 women producer groups comprising of 80 members have been formed, and they are presently preparing juice from the rhododendron flowers, which is locally called buras here. And we are also supporting them for licensing, branding, and marketing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sujuti, and thank you for keeping to time as well. We come to our last presentation before we're going to have a question session with the audience. And this comes from Lalit Kumar Sharma. And Lalit is going to talk to us this afternoon on the influence of socio-economic drivers on forest resources, a comparative evaluation of landscapes representing 3 biogeographic zones. Lalit, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. And at the outset, I would like to congratulate the CFC 2017 for this great event, and thanks for giving me this space to speak on this important dais. And thanks to the chairs for introducing the presentation title. So I'm going to present some of the preliminary findings of the study that we have recently conducted in FRI. The title of this is to understand the influence of socioeconomic drivers on forest resources, a comparative evaluation of 3 landscapes representing 3 biogeographical zones of the country. So quite a significant amount of area is covered in this study, and we know that that in India, we have forest cover, which is estimated to something around 79.42 million hectares, which is about 24% of this entire total geographical area of the country. And we are looking to have at least 30% of the total geographical land under the forest. And this we could able to achieve because of the enactment of proactive forest conservation policies and changes in management approaches, which is basically from timber to the ecosystem management strategy, during the last few decades have curbed down deforestation and promoting conservation and sustainable management of forests in India. And also the enforcement of the Forest Conservation Act 1980 enables the regulation of widespread diversion of forest land to other land use types. So this picture, presents how the forest cover have changed. In the last decade, at least, I can say that forest is almost, steadily increasing or stabilized. But recently, at the meantime, we have a lot of pressures which are basically serious problem in the forests of India. So these are two important studies when I was reviewing for the present study. So these are two important studies which have actually discussed about the different drivers of degradation and deforestation in Asia Pacific, and they have highlighted that the main driver for the deforestation is agriculture practices in Asia and Africa. But in case of degradation, the drivers are largely related to extraction of forest resources unsustainably from the Asia Pacific forests. So if we see the root causes of degradation and deforestation in India, I believe that unsound policy and institutional factor, this is an important thing. Like for example, we don't have unsound grazing policy, it's not implemented with that kind of effort. Then unsound economic and market factors, illegal trade, results in degradation. Then landlessness, unclear allocation rights. Then demographic factors, which includes population pressure, translocation, migration. Then other socio-economic and cultural factors. In this presentation, I'm going to discuss about the socio-economic drivers, how they are impacting the forest resources in three different landscapes. As we know, the degradation and deforestation results in the extraction of ecosystem services. In the meantime, they are actually responsible for, releasing a lot of carbon from this. So because considering this degradation and deforestation and loss of carbon, Government of India, under the bilateral framework, have started a project, I think 2 years back, with the support of U.S. government, funded by USAID. The project is basically anchored at Ministry of Environment Forest, and this project aims at to develop capacity in India to implement successful implementation of sustainable RED+ projects under the international mechanism. And in this project, considering that the FRI is the premier institute of forest research in India, we have been assigned some 2-3 small projects, and one of the project finding I'm going to discuss today in this presentation. The main there were two objectives of the study. First is to understand the socio-economic condition of the forest-dependent communities in three landscapes, in the Madhya Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, and Sikkim. And second one, to understand the impact of degradation and deforestation drivers on forest resources in three pilot landscapes. And the main idea behind, conducting this study to develop some measures to promote unsustainable utilization of forests, improving governance in the forestry sector, promote enhancement of carbon stock and biodiversity conservation. So these are the three landscapes. One of the area represented is in the Western Himalaya, the Central Himalaya, then Sikkim, Eastern Sikkim. Then in Madhya Pradesh, we have selected two districts, Harda and Hosangabad. So for getting information on this, the methodology adopted is basically the questionnaire, semi-structured questionnaire surveys that we have conducted in last 1 year in 117 villages by following NSSO 2001 and FSI methodology, which is a standard strategy to conduct interviews for getting information on socioeconomic aspects. And in Madhya Pradesh, we have interviewed 912 respondents, in Sikkim 336, in Himachal Pradesh 156. So for selecting the households, we have followed Cochrane 1997, and in each and every village we have interviewed at least 12 households by the methodology suggested by Cochrane. So in these questionnaires, we try to generate information on education, occupation, and income. And by these three information, we will try to categorize the socioeconomic status of the village communities in this area. And we know the most recent and the most standard methodology which is basically adopted for socioeconomic characterization is the Kupusamy scale. The Kupusamy scale is basically developed in 1967, which actually explains the relative influence of education, occupation, and income. So we have tried to, put all three things together and try to understand the socioeconomic status of these villagers. And for doing that, the consumer price index of agricultural laborers, which is available with the government of India, was used, and for the CPIL for 2015 was calculated, and the conversion factor was developed. Using this, the socioeconomic characterization of the villagers or the communities in this area and the study landscape was carried out. Then this is an example how during 1967 this kind of this kind of income was there, which was characterized by the Kupusamy, but we have converted it using the conversion factor for 2015 in this area. So based on this, we try to understand the socioeconomic status of the villagers. The second objective was addressed using the grid by using the 10 by 10 kilometer grids in the study area, and we try to generate information on fuel wood extraction, fodder collection, NTFP collection, grazing in forest, forest fire instances, presence of invasive and weeds in the area, and distance of forest from human habitation, and modest data was used to understand the frequency of forest fire. This picture, clearly depicts how we have, curved down the grids where we have done sample. We have only sampled this number of grids in these three landscapes. These are the grids which are basically having forest and human interface. So that grid data was actually used for making the generalized linear model, and we have used the logit function of the binomial logistic regression equation. And in this, the regression, the dependent value is the regeneration status of the forest. We know that regeneration actually explains the quality of forest, and the influencing variables are basically fuel wood extraction, fodder collection, NTFP, grazing in forest, forest fire incidences, weeds, invasive species, and distance of forest from human habitation. So this mother equation, we call it a mother equation for explaining things cumulatively, and this equation was used where X indicates the driver, the value of driver, and B, the beta coefficient, which is actually explaining the unit change, increase or decrease, which actually influence the dependence. So the results, for socioeconomic status, what we found that out of the three landscape, Madhya Pradesh and Himachal Pradesh study landscapes are relatively having higher number of upper, lower, and lower socioeconomic class peoples. But in Sikkim, we have a middle socioeconomic class status people more. So that indicates that these two landscapes might be depending more on forest resources because we have sampled the villages which are very close to the forest. Then now the findings of the impact of different drivers. So this is the logistic regression equation which talks about the relative influence. Distance from village, forest fire, livestock grazing, weeds are the important one significantly influencing this. But the other was not significantly influencing the impact. So this is an spatial explicit representation of villages, how the red color indicates the villages which are having high amount of dependence on forest, and the green color represent the lower one, the yellow and the different. In case of Himachal Pradesh, distance from forest and forest fire, fuel wood collection and grazing are the significant influencing variables. This is how the villages are actually spatially represented. But in case of Sikkim, NTIP collection, fuel wood collection, and the grazing are the three important significant variables which are explaining the degradation and deforestation. So these are the representation of those things. So now I will summarize. The socioeconomic status analysis indicate that majority of the respondent to be classified as low and middle class. However, the comparative valuation 3 landscape indicates that in Madhya Pradesh, the percentage of lower and upper lower were higher. Majority of the locals were dependent on low-income sector like agriculture and allied sector. In MP, for fuel wood collection, invasive species and livestock grazing are seriously negatively impacting the regeneration. HP, in Himachal Pradesh landscape, the forests were impacted by grazing and fuel wood collection. In Sikkim, the crop damage, that is damage by insect, forest fire, and presence of invasives are not significant. However, in some ranges, invasive species are a major problem. In Sikkim, NTFE extraction and fuel wood collection would be the major drivers of degradation. So based on the findings, there are some recommendations. The one is that the forest management should take up activities to provide alternative source of fuel, wood, and fodder, such as promotion of agroforestry, multifunctional trees in community and private lands. Then also, participatory management should be promoted in the landscape to strengthen biodiversity conservation and ecosystem. We know that, JFMC have started from Madhya Pradesh landscape, Harda, but still there is a lot of, scope to improve the JFMC, this kind of participatory management. Alternative income generation activities such as forest-based enterprises should be promoted in the landscape. The availability and utilization pattern of some of the NTFPs need to be studied so that we can develop a strategy to utilize. For example, in Baknania Lanjan is heavily extracted in Madhya Pradesh. We need to have some studies which can talk about the utilization and availability. Then integrated forest fire management should be adopted in all three landscapes, because forest fire has become a serious problem and it is going to become more serious problem in coming days. So I would like to acknowledge following persons for their help and support, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Lalit, for that very interesting study. And no one will be surprised in the audience to learn that Lalit, before he joined FRI, was a racehorse commentator. So I wonder if we have the volunteers available for bringing the microphone. Now, we're going to take questions in batches of 2 or 3. So we'll have 2 or 3 questions from the audience and then give the panel a chance to respond to those. And if we have time, we will have a second round as well. Now, Ismita and Savita asked me, given that we don't quite have a gender balanced panel here today, could we please give the first round of questions to the ladies in the audience? So which ladies in the audience would like to kick us off with some questions? Because they said, Tony, normally it's grey-haired individuals like yourself that ask the questions first and take up all of the time. So ladies, now is your...
Thank you.
Sorry, we're after ladies to give the first questions. Thanks. Ladies, please don't disappoint me now we've had to censure one of your colleagues. We had a fantastic presentation from Sajuti on the role of women in collecting NTFPs. Surely there must be some questions. Comments, reactions, suggestions for improved studies? Okay, well, ladies, as you consider your questions, the second point was, it's always the grey-haired gentleman that asks the questions first, so we'll ask the younger gentleman. So,
yeah, thank you.
Please resume the microphone.
Okay, thank you. I have one question, especially on the presentation, that is the ecotourism for sustainable livelihood on Karnataka. That one. Then I have another question of the last presentation. So for the first one is that we found that the presenter, he presented that they are maintaining the carrying capacity for assessing or for sustainable livelihood for the ecotourism. My question is that what type of the carrying capacity they are assessing, whether it is the physical carrying capacity, real or effective carrying capacity, and how they are maintaining the carrying capacity during the ecotourism activity. That is my first question. Can I go for the second one?
I think better to answer that, then you can go next one. See, when I meant carrying capacity means we do what you call as jungle safari, okay? So jungle safari is done on a fixed area and all. So there is a formula by which we can come out that how many vehicles can go at one time. So like each of our safaris places and all, we know that there are about 18 vehicles which can go at one time. So we will never exceed that 18 number. Even if the pressure is more, we will always keep that 18 vehicle in that particular zone. So I meant that basically that.
Okay, I got your point. But my question is something different. That is the physical carrying capacity. What you are telling that is the physical carrying capacity. But the real capacity, when you are considering the ecosystem or the wildlife disturbance, all the things, then it becomes the real carrying capacity, and when we added the managerial one, then it becomes the effective carrying capacity. So my question was, when you are talking about the carrying capacity, which you are following? That means you are following the physical carrying capacity, not the real carrying capacity.
True, true. In fact, when I say physical, when I say carrying capacity, it's not a very, very hard and fast rule and all. In India, you talk about carrying capacity, there are so many formulas also for that. I am talking about this physical carrying sort of a capacity where we are supposed to keep a minimum amount from one vehicle to other vehicle. You are supposed to keep a gap. So based upon that average gap and all, we can find out that how many vehicles can be in a particular area. So I just mentioned that.
Okay, thank you. Go for the next question. My next question for the last presenter. I want to see the link between the increase in forest cover in India and with the socio-economic driver, how it increases, how it helps. But what I know that the forest assessment starts in India during the 1987 by using the spot satellites, and in the 2015 the forest assessment, it shows that it increased 1.82% of the forest cover. So that is one question, whether that difference is significant, because there are some things related. That is the classification of the forest, one thing, and another thing, that is the spatial analysis of the data, especially that is the resolution of the data satellite image during that time and the present time. So that are the things.
Great.
I think FSI must be the better person to answer. Actually, I haven't done this. I never estimated how much forest cover have changed. I just presented, what FSI says. The Forest Survey of India has got there is a dedicated institute which have an objective to estimate this. So I'm not able to actually, correlate it with the forest change. What I was, just to give you a background how the forest cover had changed over the years, that I have presented in my slide. So I think I'm not the right person to tell you, how the satellite imagery has been analyzed and those things.
Great. Great. Could I ask you to sit next to each other for dinner, and then you can carry on that discussion. We have a gentleman here at the front, and then a second gentleman at the back. So first of all, this gentleman at the front had his hand up first.
I'm Swaran Singh. I would like to appreciate the presentation done by Kamal of Sri Lanka. It's highly appreciable. But about the forest gardens she has said, I hope she has tried to improve the quality of that forest garden with highly genetically improved species, with plantation supplementation of plantations, and well along with the total composite farming and that unit of one farmer.
So, sorry, she just wanted clarification on your question?
No, she has not been able to follow it. Have you included your project in the project to improve the quality of that garden, forest garden, with highly genetically improved species and varieties?
That was not the intention of the study, no.
Sir, myself Rajiv Rai from Tropical Forest Research Institute. My question is whether ecotourism is profitable, viable, functional, and income generating in areas other than national park, because in the national park the focus is on visit and seeing the wildcats.
Specifically, you're addressing your question to the first speaker, to Sanjay?
No, when I mentioned, I have not mentioned only about the parks and the sanctuaries and all. Karnataka Forest Department, anywhere where there is a scope, whether it is a park or it's a forest area, because you get eco spots in all the places and all. And what we have done, wherever there is a small eco spot and all, we have handed over that place to the local sort of EDCs and all, EDCs and sort of VFCs. So EDC and VFC are going to look after that sort of spot and all, and people get some jobs, not in a very, very huge way. Suppose one small spot is being managed by a EDC. So they can have a night, they can have two guys who will take care of the people, who will take care of some entry fee and all. So maybe one small sort of spot can handle about 2 guys. So in that way, if we have many spots in the forest areas, some small sort of employment can be done.
Good. Akish?
Thank you, Chairman. I will address my question and comments to Mr. Mohan regarding ecotourism. He said that ecotourism is considered a non-forestry activity under the Forest Conservation Act. This is correct, because in the past, under the garb of ecotourism, there had been many attempts to go for even construction of big building, even shopping malls, cinema halls. There had been proposals to Government of India when under the garb of ecotourism, there was attempt to construct some commercial enterprises. But all the same, there are certain activities like nature trails, camping sites. This should not attract attention of the Forest Conservation Act while granting permission for ecotourism. So this is for the Ministry of Environment Forest to consider that small activities which are not detrimental to the interests of forest conservation should be taken out of the purview of the Forest Conservation Act. Number 2, so far there is only one guideline for ecotourism that is applicable to the tiger projects. There are no guidelines for other protected areas. There are no guidelines for ecotourism for traditional or regular forest areas. So Ministry of Environment Forest must consider formulating guidelines for forest areas and protected areas other than tiger reserves as early as possible. Thank you.
I think he's agreeing with you.
I think whatever you have told is absolutely right, and I think it is high time that a new forest policy should come. We should ensure that this ecotourism word is there.
Great. Other burning questions in the room? Comments, observations, please.
Thank you, Chair. My name is A.K. Verma and I am from Sanjay State. So I would request Sanjay to clarify, although the point was raised by my friend behind. You have a carrying capacity study done, and you are following it very strictly. I know that. But what about government policy in restricting the number of resorts which are coming around these protected areas or reserve forests? For example, in one of the forests in Dandeli, as you know, 200 rooms or convention center has come. Just the point which Ashish was making. Now, a 200 room, how one can expect the ecotourism to be sustainable? Should the government, or is government aware of that? And if so, what are they doing about it? That is a question to you. Or maybe a query in the sense whether these things are attracting your attention, as in policy making. And then next, I will ask that lady who had done that study for mountain women later on. Thank you.
No, this is quite true. In fact, earlier what was happening, if anybody wants to open a new sort of a homestay or a resort and all, forest wing was not at all asked or sort of not at all asked, consulted. But of late, some wisdom has come up. Now, if you want to start any resort in the vicinity of a park or a sanctuary, the concerned authorities, forest department is not the authority, but the concerned authority has to in turn ask the forest department about that. So once the forest department says yes, then only this permission can be given. So I'm sure that earlier this wisdom was not there, but of late this wisdom is coming, sir, and I'm sure in future some control will be there in this way.
Then, Chair, sir, just one question to that lady who had done study in the mountains, women. As you could see, sir, almost 600 to 700 kg, right from firewood to medicinal plant to grass is being collected by per women per year, I suppose. Per year. It's a huge quantity.
Yeah.
During your study, did you find the regeneration effect of all this collection, whether it is keeping pace with the removal?
This woman, they actually follow a very, they follow a rule which they have been following for the generations. The forest patches from which they collect They collect seasonally from that forest patches, and the next season they go to the next forest patch. So and it's actually an agreement between them. They know which forest patch they have to collect and which area they have to leave for the natural regeneration.
Oh, that's great to know. In that, supplementary to that, then would not you like to convert into economic value of the whole thing and give it to government to put into policy making and budget allocation, because these are considered as free from forest, and department's budget allocation remains, at 0.02% contribution. Whereas if we calculate all these things to economic terms, it goes huge.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to make a case for that?
Yeah. Our long-term objective is to have the economic valuation of these forest producers collected so that we can give it as a pilot study to the forest department for a greater study by them at the central level. Yeah, thank you.
I've been told we should finish and wrap up now because we have to keep to time. But I think everyone will agree in the room that we've been treated to 5 fantastic presentations from our panel here, from our list of speakers. Mohan kicked us off with ecotourism in Karnataka and presented various definitions, but put simply, this is when ecotourism is when some decide to go on holiday. It allows others to work because it generates that huge amount of employment in Karnataka. But for the tourists, it's not just a holiday, but an educational experience and also contributing to labor activities. It was interesting to see some ecotourism at scale and not just boutique projects ranging from large lodges right down to individual village and household level. The conclusions that needed to have a paradigm shift to create more employment for people, and obviously the concerns around impact on the ecosystem are important, but also to establish state and national policies. And Mohan looks forward to seeing you all on your next holidays. Mahmoodi took us through a fascinating presentation on the regional and sub-regional differences in firewood species in Iran. Array from Prosopis to Quercus, and very few people in the room would see oak as a firewood species. The various firewood needs, ranging from heating, water, cooking, baking, etc., were teased out during the study and the analyses, and it was interesting to see the relationship between people's income levels and their firewood demand. And if we are to address some of that firewood demand, obviously it's as much an issue of poverty as energy sourcing. Melvani took us through a lovely trip in the forest gardens of Sri Lanka, which account for up to 15% of the landscape, and with some innovative analytical approaches from the agricultural perspective rather than the wonderful home garden images many of us are already aware of, and both from the on-farm and off-farm dimensions. This 5-year study looked at the role of forests in diversifying incomes from both the short and long-term perspectives, and reminded us of a lot of the difficulties of these longitudinal studies in forestry, especially when we have El Niño years and marauding wildlife. Using a principal coordinate analysis, she teased out differences in diversity, profitability, stability of production amongst those short and long term, and reminded us of those differences between price, cost, and value, and the role of these in food self-sufficiency and off-farm employment opportunities. But simply put, forest gardens led to reduced risk, greater self-sufficiency, tree crops less affected by climate variability, and lower costs of overall production. And finished with the fact that these were intergenerational biological assets, which is a lovely image to carry us away with. Sujuti reminded us of the in Uttarakhand, where she focused on disadvantaged groups, and particularly women, as major collectors of minor forest products, or NTFPs, both for cash sale and home use. And it was interesting to see that firewood was still used even though gas cylinders were available because of the convenience of it. Even though medicinal plants were still collected, she reminded us and remarked that there was still a demand for modern medicines, and it's interesting to see how that plays out, particularly when you consider the average volume of collection was 521 kilos, a staggering amount per collector. And obviously it does raise questions of sustainability, as one of our questioners asked. The generation and attitudes in these groups are also changing, and I think it brings us back to the point that the romance of some of this forest collecting, and it's different when people have choices, and we have to think about those transitions that are going to take both in their livelihoods and the ecosystem that support them. And she finished with opportunities for greater income when groups are formed, and that will be interesting to see how that progresses. And lastly, our very accomplished racehorse commentator whisked us through a fascinating study on the drivers of deforestation, and linked his study to the national policies on forests, which was very compelling. Obviously, the largest data sets that were produced today, although he didn't direct the research, was used a lot of data to tease out these and put them into a general linearized model with logit functions to tease out the influence of fuel, wood, and grazing, and fire, and other drivers of deforestation, and link that up to MODIS satellite data as well. And the link to household forest dependency was particularly captivating towards the end. So as the chair of the session, I'm also allowed to give out a few awards, and so I think Mohan wins the award for the most compelling photos. I think Baitola wins the award for the best structure of the presentation. It was crystal clear. Kamal wins the award for the most comprehensive analyses, not in terms of sophistication, but the utility and the understanding of your result. Sujuti wins the award for the best focus on poverty and women focused study. And lastly, Sharma wins the award for the largest study in terms of size and comprehension, and also the fastest delivery of the afternoon. So please give a warm round of applause to our 5 presenters.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simons. Now, as a token of respect and appreciation, we would like to present mementos to all our presenters. And may I request Dr. Simon to do the honor. I'll call upon the name. We would like to present memento to first Dr. Kamal Melwani. Thank you so much. Dr. Sejuta Sarkar D. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Sanjay Mohan. Thank you, sir. Dr. Betullah Mahmoodi. Thank you, sir. And Dr. Lalit Kumar Sharma. Once again, on behalf of entire FRI fraternity, for carrying out the session so smoothly and a wonderful manner, I would like to express thanks to Dr. Simon, and for doing so, I would like to welcome Dr. U. Prakasham, Director TFRI, to present the memento to Dr. Simon. Thank you so much. With this, we come to an end of this post-lunch sessions of day 1. Thank you all for being with us and participating so actively. Enjoy your evening in this Sylvan campus of FRI. Bye-bye. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. We have Commonwealth canopy here. This place, kindly participate in that canopy and enjoy the function over there. Thank you so much.